What happens when a law is so confusing that no one knows how to apply it? If the criminal law is so vague or produces such inconsistent results, does it become unconstitutional? There's a federal law called the Armed Career Criminal Act, which says that if you're convicted of a gun-related crime and have 3 prior convictions for violent felonies, that's a 15-year mandatory minimum prison sentence. That's a big deal. But what is a violent felony? The Act defines violent felony as a crime that can be punishable for up to 1 year in prison, that's in any court, state or federal, and that has as one of its elements the use or threatened use of force against somebody else. The Act also defines burglary, arson, and extortion as examples of these crimes, or the use of explosives, or, and this is important, otherwise involves conduct that presents a serious potential risk of physical injury to another. That is known as the residual clause. But what does that mean? Well, it turns out that it's a very thorny question that the Supreme Court has had to take up again and again and again. And in the case of Johnson versus United States, the narrow issue asks if the mere possession of a short-barrel shotgun violates the law as a violent crime under the ACCA. But more broadly, is that residual clause involving violent felonies, is that too vague to pass constitutional muster? That gets us into the case that the Supreme Court is taking up this term, Johnson versus United States. Mr. Johnson was arrested in 2012, a few years ago, for manufacturing napalm and explosives. He was also found in possession of an AK-47 and all sorts of other weaponry. He was investigated as a domestic terrorist by the FBI. But this wasn't his first brush with the law. In 1999, he was convicted of robbery. He pulled a gun on someone in a parking lot. In 2007, he had 2 more convictions, one more for armed robbery and then also for possessing a short-barrel shotgun. And the question here is that third conviction for the mere possession of a short-barrel shotgun a violent felony that would put him under the jurisdiction of the Armed Career Criminal Act? The defendant, Johnson's argument is that this residual clause is too vague. Our criminal laws need to be spelled out precisely, or they can lead to arbitrary punishment of people. And if prosecution is defined by any individual prosecutor or by judges or juries based on they know a crime when they see it, well, that leads to the rule of man rather than the rule of law. The government basically says, why do we throw out a law that works in the vast majority of cases just because it's tough to apply in some cases? These cases keep coming up and there are splits in the lower courts. Does the Supreme Court have to review every case in which this law is charged? If the Supreme Court, let's remember, strikes down the law here for being vague, Congress could always pass a new law and specify exactly which crimes qualify, or try to specify more clearly what constitutes a violent felony without having this kind of grab bag residual clause that's been so confusing to so many courts.